but swallow it. Oh, okay. My name is Zama from Chisimani. We just speak. Yeah. Welcome to our session. Tonight we are meeting to discuss one part of a 5-part series that we posted in the last few weeks, where we're looking into, comrades, the kind of the crisis in local government. I think it has become more obvious to everyone that our local government is in crisis. Week in, week out, we see on TV communities rising and saying this municipality is failing us, this councillor is failing us, this mayor is failing us, we don't have water, we don't have electricity, we don't have housing. If it's not the community that is coming out, we see the Auditor General that says these people are failing audits. There's a lot of fruitless expenditure in our municipalities, and this is across, whether you're in a metro or you're in a rural municipality. So in our first session, we discussed that why our municipalities fail, and we tried to grapple with the reasons of what we think are the reasons are there. And then we moved to how can we respond, where we invited Professor Dr. Tracy Ledger as well to speak on what are the policies that are there for communities to hold their local governments to account. We then moved to our third discussion on local government in crisis and what happens to our local economies. And Ayabo Matawe took us through and proved to us and showed us extensively how failing municipalities make us even more poor and how it exacerbates inequality in general. And there were examples, of course, if there's electricity cuts, poor people are forced to buy gas, which is more money. So as more the municipalities fail, people become very more poor. So today, we're here to discuss about what are the possibilities that the upcoming local election presents. What do we think these elections mean with the struggles around local government and government in crisis? We've asked comrades to think about these things, to come and have a kind of more physical and online meeting so that we can kind of go in deeper, because elections mean a lot of things to people. Some people are hopeful that we're having elections. Some people are not as hopeful. Some people are saying, we're indifferent, whether we vote or not. Actually, it's a holiday, let me just do my laundry. So those are the things that are coming up. And that I think it's important that a social movement and activists be able to look at these possibilities and speak and say, what is the strategy and tactics as activists? Because once and more, we do have to interact with the state. Whether we're writing letters, whether we're marching to the municipality, whether we are having memorandums of understanding with the members of municipalities, we always have to engage power and local power. So today, just to get to it, so that we don't keep people too late, I have 3 panelists here. And I want comrades to first introduce themselves, and then we can go through their, initial views on this topic. But let's just allow comrades to introduce themselves. So I'll start there by Comrade Victor.
The name is Victor Aldenstedt, General Secretary of the Bishop Labour's Action Community, Black.
Hi, my name is Henrietta Abrams. I'm the chairperson of the Portable Development Forum and our independent community chosen candidate for the local government elections.
My name is Akoli Lenotwal. I'm with the Movement for Care, and also work on the Right to Know campaign.
Okay, let's get into it, comrades. I want to start with Comrade Victor. Today, during the afternoon, we read that heartful, passionate statement that you guys wrote as the Bishop Labour's Action Community. And a lot of comrades identified with it. A lot of comrades saw themselves in it. And you basically say in the statement, the coming local election are a scam. You write it plainly like that. And you then go on and say, people in the community must ask the people who are campaigning the simple question, where were you when we needed you? Can you clarify in your opening remarks, why has the Bishop Levis Action community taken this position? Is this position to boycott? What does the position really mean?
Thank you. Yes, our position was born out of our own experiences. Since 2017, when the Bishop Levis Action Community was formed, we had about 17 people who were killed in a period of 3 weeks. Our community became a ghost town. Children didn't want to go to school. Parents didn't go to work, they stayed at home because they were afraid that they could be caught in the crossfire. And then we started off with black. Our very first interaction which we have had, was an interaction where we marched through the community of Bishop Levis. Now, that was 2017. Throughout that time, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, our councillor didn't support any of our actions on any one occasion. The politicians did not support our struggles. In fact, they were against, and is still against, our organization. Now I want to take this a little bit further and go back to this whole question of elections. And when we had our first elections in 1994, everybody was queuing to vote because this is something which we have fought for. Because believing that your vote will make a change. In actual fact, it is not true. All of the political parties within parliamentary politics, they represent a certain specific class interest of the bourgeoisie. So, for instance, if you look at the Democratic Alliance within South Africa, the Democratic Alliance ascribes to a liberal policy. Our people don't even understand what liberalism is, but our people vote for the DA. The same you could say about the African National Congress. Whose interests do they protect? The same for the economic freedom fighters. Although they have a constituency with youth, but their leadership, what do they represent? So, politics is dirty, and at the end of the day, the working class, our ordinary people, are those who benefit the least out of the system. I'll stop there.
Okay, Thank you very much, Comrade Victor. I just want to come to you, Comrade Henrietta. You are an independent candidate. You are running in your community. You're also part of a community organization where you're a chairperson. How did you guys come to a position to contest power? And why are you guys contesting this elections?
Okay. First of all, some people are saying, it's not a knock on you, some people are saying that we've done there, we've worn the t-shirt. So yes, I agree with everything that Victor is saying. So we were very excited, we were in euphoria in 1994. We've put our leaders there, not knowing what's laying on the road ahead and so forth. And then we were sold out. Yes, we were fighting for democracy, for the end of poverty and equality and all of those things, and we're finding ourselves into conditions where our people's material conditions on the ground have literally become worse, with non-functioning municipalities, with corruption, with every 5 years when we see these politicians coming knocking on our doors begging for our votes, with more lies and more lies. So the last local government elections, and Victor will know about this, we have run in Pontyville, we spoil the ballot with our votes, right? Precisely for those reasons, that our people have been dying on the Cape Flats by the hundreds. Victor then had 17 in 1 weekend. At the point we also had about the same amount, and nobody heard us. We went to the streets together, and it's not just the issue of gang violence, of gender-based violence, of abuse, of poverty, and all of those things, but nothing is changing. The very politicians and councillors were calling the cops on us. It's rightfully so. That is what's happening with us. So in the last local government elections, we've also taken the stand as a community that we will spoil our ballots, we will not participate because they are not legitimate. We understand the politics that they are trying on us and leaving us alone. So this time around, as the BDF, we have decided, we had AGM, and we organizing streets and block committees and so forth, and people had to go and discuss and come with a mandate. What is our take and our position going to be? And at our AGM, we've decided that we will go to the community, we will go via surveying our community and get their feelings on it. So we had a set of questions, and questions would be, how do you feel about political parties? What do they mean for us as a community? How do they serve us? Do they serve us? How do you feel about councillors living on your street or outside of your street? What are the issues, and how do we prioritize those issues? So all of this information came through, and we've also asked people, so should you be able to choose a councillor, who would that councillor be? And people, we've gotten names and nominations from our communities. And I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately for me, it came through that I was nominated as the person. So we went to the ground and we said we have no belief in political parties. Fighting for our interests, the very same things that Victor has been saying. Fighting for our interests. They are there for the interests of the bourgeoisie, they are there for the interests of business and not for us. So we have said that all this time, all these years as communities, we, as aunties, and if you look at community struggles, it is our aunties, it is our mummies, it is our women on the street, unemployed and poor, that is helping and assisting, making communities better. So we have a very feminist slant, because we are the feet, the hands, the eyes and the ears on our streets, that is there, that understands our communities, that know who our needy are, that knows where to respond, how to respond. We have our own networks. So over this period, we have been serving our communities ourselves without a budget from sub-council, without a budget from the ward councillor himself. We've been there knocking and begging on friends, families, our alma mater and so forth, to help us as a community organization to serve our people in the needs of our people. So we have lost complete faith in political parties serving us. We're saying we the people, we are the change. we need to go back to the basics and take our power back and put it into the hands of our communities to once again democratically decide for ourselves what is best for ourselves and who should be representing us, when, how they should take mandates, when they should take report backs, what are the decisions that's being made, and who, and instruct you as their representative which decisions to take forward or not, to vote against or not, to lobby for or not. So I'll stop there for a moment. I can take all extra time if I'm not going to stop. Thanks.
No, thank you very much, Comrade Henrietta. I'm just thinking now that you guys are actual neighbors, not neighbors here alone. Bishop Davis is actually next to you. Wonderful. And it's interesting how comrades are referring to the communities and are referring to the structures, the area communities, and that the discussions are different, and yet you are, neighbors. So it's good to hear that. Comrade Anthony, I want to bring you here. When we were trying to think about this talk and who to invite in this talk, comrades, when we suggested your name, people asked, what is this movement of care? Is it care for care work? Is it care for, I don't know. So we want, firstly, before you give us your position on what the movement thinks on the elections, can you just give a brief explanation on what movement of care is? And then you can move to what has movement of care decided and how do they want to approach this coming elections? Shokit.
Sure, thank you, Comrade. Good evening, everyone. The movement for care is a fairly new movement that is in the process of building. We are building a movement with a number of activists and a number of communities across Cape Town. The full name is the Movement for Collective Action and Racial Equity. And the name in itself explains what the movement is about, because I think the type of politic that we are used to are the politics that are sometimes about individuals, but also are politics where we find struggles in isolated manners, where we don't build together. And I'm talking about politics in political parties, but also even in the civil society space, that my organization fights in that corner, that organization fights in that corner. There's no collective action. But also, this issue of racial equity, we know how Cape Town is built. We know how Cape Town was built and what it was built for. It was built for division. It was built to divide. Black and colored people in Cape Town make up 80% of the population. But that doesn't reflect on the ground that we are the majority. And that's the type of, that's the racial equity that we need to start building. Specifically now, in the last few years, months, we're starting to see, instead of these communities bridging that divide is starting to widen. And we've seen groups such as Hartford, where the divide might widen because of those types of politics. And Cape Town, just geographically, there's a book that was written by Pumeza Mlungwana and Dustin Kramer of the formerly SJC. They call Cape Town a city of islands. That's what Cape Town is. It's costly to organize, it's costly to build solidarity. And the movement for care is trying to bridge those divides. It's starting to want to build those divides so that we can fight and be able to make sure that Cape Town is what it is for everyone, for the 80% of the population, not for the 20% of the population, which is predominantly white and rich. And so that's what the movement is about. But to also encourage people and individuals to take power when they can, to encourage independent councillors, to sort of bring a new type of politic and new types of politics. So that in summary is the movement for care. But I think it's important to talk about this issue of care in itself, which is something that we don't see in our politics, which is something that we don't see from our politicians and from our political parties. You go to a community, they're going to tell you that those people don't care. And so we want to instill what we've termed as now the politics of care. These are politics in how we engage, in how we care for each other, but in how we care for ourselves, in how we care for the environment. To start to instill those politics and to practice the politics of care, rather than the opposite, which I'm sure we all know about here.
Yeah, I just wanted you to also give initial inputs on what the movement of care's approach to this local challenge.
Sure. So, I mean, I think one of the questions, and I'm going to get to that. One of the questions which I think you asked was what is the opportunity? What do these elections present? What opportunity do these elections present? And Comrade Victor talked about politics being dirty. That's how we know them. That's how we know politics in different spaces where we are involved in. Our approach as a movement is in the spaces where we are and in the spaces where we engage. We need to unlearn these dirty politics, these dirty types of politics. We need to unlearn what we know and how we are used to politics and politicking, because we grow up in these types of politics and we co-opt these types of politics. So the first thing and the first step is to unlearn those types of politics. The second step is to disrupt. Having an independent candidate is disrupting the status quo. Having people boycott elections is disrupting the status quo. And so we need to disrupt the types of politics and the political spaces that we know that are occupied by certain people and certain faces. Doing that, unlearning and disrupting, the third point is we need to rebuild. Once we've unlearned and once we've disrupted, we need to rebuild. We need to rebuild politics from the ground, as the comrades in Pontyville have started to do. We need to rebuild politics and spaces that center people. We need to rebuild politics that center people and collectives and collective action. We need to rebuild this politics of care that I'm talking about. We need to rebuild feminized politics. We need to rebuild politics that are about participation. We need to rebuild politics that are about action, not just rhetoric. We hear a lot of politicians and political parties talking a lot, but we don't see anything and any change on the ground. And so those three steps are sort of a concept that we've termed the UDR concept: unlearning, disrupting, and rebuilding, in terms of the politics and the political spaces. So for me and for the movement, the tactic and the idea is that elections are going to come and go. Elections are but a tactic in terms of achieving what we want to achieve. Political parties have millions of rands in terms of their budget. That budget is targeted towards elections. But I've never seen any of these parties using these millions of rands for participatory processes during these 5 years. There's going to be a process in March next year. A draft budget is going to be released by the city of Cape Town. People don't even know about the city's budget. 50 billion rands each year, that's the city's budget. No one, majority of the people, Cape Town's population is around 3 million. Probably around 50 or 100 people participate out of 3 million. And so that is the opportunity for me. Elections are going to come by 1st of November, elections are gone. The opportunity exists post the elections as well. Once we have the candidates, that's where the real work needs to happen. The City of Cape Town, or the DA, recently passed the unlawful occupations bylaw. Political parties didn't even bother to go and consult communities about that bylaw. They still focused on elections. Instead of using that money to say, there is this, you need to comment. It was only civil society organizations that did that. So for me, an opportunity presents itself now for people that want to vote. But we know many people are tired of the status quo in the political parties. But once you have voted, you need to make sure that you begin a process where you're gonna take steps to hold those that you are gonna vote for from the 1st of November. Don't wait for another 1st of November in the next 5 years. On the 2nd of November, you need to demand from your ward councillor. You need to participate in different spaces in your community. That's what the Movement for Care exists for, and those are the spaces that we hope to create in the different communities across Cape Town.
No, thank you very much, Keda. Just thinking now, the city's budget is 50 billion, and that's more than the budget of Mozambique, the whole country. Converse of money here. But I think I want to open to comrades here. From the initial comments from comrades who have put up positions and what their movements and their communities and their approaches and attitudes to the upcoming local government elections. Do we have hands here? Can see one. You can ask the question directly, you can ask the question indirectly, you can have a general question. Okay, let me just note. It's one. It's one. It's two. It's three. Are you submarine? Okay, 4. So we'll close the first round. 1. Okay. Now switch off. I'm just sure.
1, 2. Okay. My question is directed to Comrade X. There is that part, Comrade, where you spoke. I think you mentioned 3 words: rebuild, 3 times. I want to ask whether are we rebuilding towards what? That's number 1. And the second question, I want to understand whether rebuilding is enough for the working class. Why are we rebuilding? Why are we not interrupting? Interruption. So that's the question.
Let's take all the questions. Number 2.
Hi, my question is for Henrietta Abrams. My question is, not a question, it's more like a request. By explaining to everybody here, we know the groundwork that was done in Pontiac, and to encourage, it's more of an encouragement here for people that sit here with a maybe and a no, to encourage them to go to your communities. And Henrietta, you, the only one that I always turn to, and to ask you how tonight you can instill that encouragement for them to go to the polls on the 1st of November.
Molweni. So ndiyandisa kuwe buzo wabo. So uthethe ngemicimbi ye-independent candidates for ward councillors. Ayiqala uvela imicimbi ye-independent candidates as a way of distracting the system itself going into elections. But how effective is it? Is it only effective for the certain period of time going into election? Or are we saying, let's say, Usagi is our independent councillor and he wins the elections, the running on his own. Usagi gets there to cancel. And then some of the promises Usagi made to us, otherwise was fails because of some reasons, money-wise or whatever the case may be, we cancel. So what are we saying, Usagi? Are we saying Usagi is the same as other councillors, or so the funders how effective is it, the same of independent councillors? Is it effective for a long term or just a short? Yeah.
Okay, so to Comrade Victor, I have just these questions that first you spoke about voting as being a problem, but now the question would be, is voting the problem, or the problem is that from 1994, the government adopted, the neoliberal policy, which makes, it seem like, the problem lies on voting. That's the first one. And the second one would be, now, it seems like to me that you are generalizing that, we politicians are like this. But now my question, how would you know that other political parties will do the same that the ones on power are doing currently, if they haven't had a chance? Because it's more like saying to me that you're dating a partner that's insecure because, he or she was hurt by their previous partner. So yeah, that's the question. And lastly, to Comrade Henrietta, isn't spoiling the bylaw or the ballot in a way putting up a different devil to the councillor seat? Because, if the movement is spoiling the ballot, not everyone in the community will do so. Probably they will still vote, for their different constituencies. Now, isn't it also giving them another sort of power? Thank you.
You want to start? Sure.
If we go back to the 70s and the 80s, within South Africa, we have had what was called street committees. We have had self-defense committees all over the country. People as a collective made decisions in terms of where do we go from here. With the advent of the capitalist democracy, those powers were now wrenched from the collective and vested in a single person who is the council. Now, in there is the issue about the elections and the quality of the voting, because ideally we should move to what is called participatory democracy. At the moment we have representative democracy. What powers do we have to recall these people? And you know what? Being a counselor can mystify this job. In black, should we contest the next elections? Because we have to, Henrietta them has done the spoiled ballot. So their other tactic is to put a independent candidate there. We are not there yet. We believe that democracy should be built within our streets, first and foremost. Our streets should be fully constituted. We must know everything about everybody within our streets in order for us to lobby, protest for the best services for our people. So yeah, the main issue here is when the power and the decision making is being privatized. Hence, we are saying that the local government elections should be socialized. And it is a demand beyond the capitalists. They will not laugh because of that. But that is something that we should try towards. If we recall what has happened within the Russian Revolution, with the Soviets were organs of working class power. There was this strange phenomenon that existed which was called dual power. The power that was exerted by the authorities, and then the power that was being held by the Soviets to advance the working class struggle. That is what we should strive towards. We are not a political party. We are a social movement. We are a working class social movement. And our job is to prepare the cadres for the Socialist Party, whatever that is. That is what we do. That is the limits of our power as a social movement. That is the furthest that we can go, because we cannot convert ourselves into a political party. It's not going to work. It simply doesn't work like that. The other very important thing which I've forgot to mention, and nowadays we see it, Saftu, Lomsa, Kosatu, all of these people have strike actions. But we are the communities. Why is it that the communities are also not part of that action? Because when you are a worker, you come out of a community, first and foremost. So, simultaneously with the building of the street committees, the worker committees should be built. That will elevate our struggle. Okay, thanks.
No comments, you can answer.
Okay.
No, I was just showing that I must stop.
Oh, okay. Going to Saki's questions first. Saki, the spoiling your ballot, that was something that we've done in the previous elections, 2016, and that didn't work for us, right? So going to Salama and to the other question in terms, Salama's question was encouraging others, the maybe or not going to go and vote. And the other one is how effective and for how long is it going to be effective to have an independent councillor, and if they mess up, what do you do, and so forth. So our answers is that we have no illusions of grandeur as BDF in terms of winning this, going and changing the system, and all of we're very pragmatic in our approach. We are saying yes, we know. We've been trying to work with other communities and social movements to try and build and get ready for should we come to 2021, what are we going to do as the working class? Unfortunately, as social movements and communities, we are all at various stages and not everybody's at the same stage. And most importantly, and we must be honest with ourselves, we like to talk, but we don't like to work. The hard work that Victor is talking about, every year since before 1994, we've been talking about the Socialist Party, we've been talking about the social movements and all of these things, but we just talk. We want to lead and talk, but we don't want to do the dirty work. We like to talk on behalf of others without consulting our people here. So we as BDF has made this decision that we will no longer be talking with talkers, we will just start doing, right? And by just starting to do, and others can lead, by no means do we have a proper model or the right model or whatever. We're saying we're doing things our way, we are tired of talking, we will take that rand and that cent and turn it around in the interest of our people. If it means that we must beg others to assist us, to get resources to help us do better for our people, we will do that. But we will not lose our dignity by getting into bed with the corrupt, by getting into bed with the opportunists, by getting into bed with those very people, some of our comrades, some of them, my leader, my chiefs, that's using us for their own benefit. We've decided that those days are over. We are doing it for us as ourselves, as communities. Right? So the other thing is, in terms of accountability, in terms of the very same thing that Victor is talking next to me, in terms of accountability, in terms of recall, if I should be elected as the councillor, I am the representative of the people. I take my mandate from the people. I shall not go and vote. I don't have the right to go and vote at any particular council meeting or give my thinking if I did not consult the people's assemblies in Pontyville. We have block assemblies, and that is where I'm taking my mandate from, where I'm taking my report backs from, and so on. And that is the type of democracy we fought for, some of our people died for, some of us sat in jail for, and that other charlatans are coming and taking away from us and making us more poorer as communities. So we must be very tactical on the 1st of November. We must go to the polls. If X is telling us this is what what we must be doing is disrupting. We must go and disrupt the status quo. We must look at it. We want it as Sub-Council 5, we know as BDF. If we can change the dynamics, the power dynamics within Sub-Council 5, if we disrupt there, if we take that seat in Ward 50 that I'm standing in, and we take a seat or we disrupt the PR seat of the DA and the ANC and whomsoever else that's standing there, that we change the seats, we turn the tables
So if Bishop Lavis, which is in our same sub-council, Delft, which is in the same sub-council, Belhar, that's in the same sub-council, if we all could have come together and just disrupted and changed that power dynamics to get into sub-council 5 and into our wards to put that resources, lobby for more resources and our own resources, the little that we have. But what do we have? We have the institutional knowledge. We have the networks of feet and ears and eyes and everything on the ground. We live there. We are the people. We are not the leaders. We are not the ones that giving directives from out there and from wherever headquarters. We take our directives here from the streets. And that is what people's power is about. That is what real and true democracy is about. So by giving your vote to the political party, you are not helping our people. Because giving your vote to a political party is helping individuals and the political party leadership for themselves. Thank you, comrades.
Yeah, it's a tough picture for it. Thank you for this. So there were two questions. One was rebuilding towards what and why not interrupt. That's exactly what I was talking about, is that before you rebuild, you first need to unlearn, because what we've seen is a replication of the same thing and the same thing again. You move from the ANC, you are expelled, you go to the DA, you are chased away because of racism, you start a land party, you go from the land party, you go to the Patriotic Alliance. It's just a replication. There's no unlearning, there's no disrupting, therefore you can never rebuild. You're just gonna build because you did not unlearn, you did not disrupt. What I spoke about is that before you even disrupt, you need to unlearn. We need to unlearn. Most of us, majority of us, have come from these types of politics. You either come from the politics of the ANC or of the DA or of the EFF. Those are all political parties. We need to learn, we need to unlearn those types of politics. Politics are about all of us. What the system and the political parties in South Africa and in any other part of the world, they've made politics for certain people. They've made politics to look like they are for certain people. And that's what we need to unlearn. We need to understand that politics are for all of us. But because they have a certain feeling, politics are dirty, and so we try to run away rather than getting into the spaces and disrupting those spaces. So the rebuilding is the rebuilding towards a better society. There was that the article that they shared with the comrade that I was talking about, service delivery from Stephen Friedman. Maybe he's going to talk about it soon. Service delivery and how it's I forget the actual term, but it's ruining democracy in one way or the other. Because that's what even ward councillors think they get into power to do. They say, I'm going to build houses, I'm going to do this. That's not their role. That's not the role of ward councillors. The role of ward councillors is to be there so that they can bring information to the people and they can be sent via Tuma. That's the role of the ward councillors. It's not for them to deliver services, to make sure that people have spaces and they have the resources, they have the information to do those things themselves. The second question around independent candidates. Sadly, the issue of independent candidates is only starting to gain momentum in these elections. Independent candidates at the local government level, at least, there has always been space. But I think partly what has also influenced this now in this year is the fact that there was a court case, a constitutional court case, that was talking about independent candidates at the national level. At the local level, there's always been that opportunity. But in the context of Cape Town specifically, there's never been an independent candidate that has won a ward. Even worse, there's never been another party besides the ANC and the DA that has ever won a ward. It's always been the DA and or the ANC that has always governed in wards. Other parties get through PR. They've occupied PR seats. So it will be historic this year if there is another party that wins a ward. It will even be more historic if there is an independent candidate that wins a ward. And so we can't say how effective have independent ward councillors been, because we don't know. They've never occupied a seat in the context of Cape Town. They might have in other municipalities, but it will be historic in Cape Town. And we only have an opportunity to see how effective they are going to be. But what we know is that they are not controlled by party bosses. They are controlled by communities. They have to go back and account to communities. They don't have to go back and account to parties, because it's difficult to recall independent councillors because they have to account to parties rather than accounting to communities. That's what we know, at least, is the difference.
Can I just add? There's a you get independent.
Yeah.
You get independent candidates and you get independent candidates. So you get an independent candidate who has no mandate, no constituency, standing there for him or herself.
The pastors.
Those are the independents that you get. And then you get independence that has organically built their constituency. So I would just want us to make that differentiation between the independents. Thank you.
No, because you've spoken a mouthful. I want to be those boring academics in universities, because they're always critiquing us and writing all big papers on the initiatives of the social movement. So I want to test a bit. Comrade Victor, we already have a crisis of people who don't vote in this country. In 2019, the last general election, there were 34 million eligible voters. 15 million actually voted. So if you calculate that, 49% people voted. We are here today living in a democracy of the minority. People don't vote. And since 94, voter turnout has been going down, 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 and down. By not participating, by boycotting in one way or another, what are you comrades trying to achieve? While we have already a crisis, we are living under governments that are not legitimate, that are not voted by the majority.
I think that people have an incorrect understanding of what the boycott is. When we say we boycott the elections, it doesn't mean that we are apathetic towards the elections. It means that we are building the alternative. That is what the boycott is. The boycott cannot be apathy, because then we should not be involved in politics at all. Thank you.
Okay. This mic is going to be a crisis case. Comrade Henrietta, I'm being this academic now. People will say, hey, Comrade Henrietta, you run, you win, you'll do well, but when you get to the council, you'll be surrounded. You're the only independent candidate. Comrade already spoke about Natal or?
Comrade Colin has already spoke about how in Cape Town there's been a space that is blocking independent candidates. So what do you think when people say to you, yeah, you're running, yeah, you're happy, yes, you're a representative, but because of the space you're going to, you'll have to, you'll have to vote for the budget, whether you vote or not. You're not part of the majority or the winning minority or a competing minority. How do you think, how are you going to navigate that space of being alone and still having to deliver to the people?
I've been getting that a lot.
I wanted to add something to this question of yours.
We'll open around here. Open around.
Okay.
Speak.
Okay.
Okay, I've been asked that a lot and critiqued also. Yes, so how effective you're going to be because you're going to be in the minority, your voice will be drowned out, you will be co-opted by others, and you will sell out and all of those things. I don't think there's a lot of people who knows me really in this room for being a disruptor. I think I was disruptive in my mother's womb already. And I will just be there to disrupt, to speak out against inequality, to speak out and take action around corruption, take action around all these decisions that is anti-poor, that is divisive, that is against our people and it's not moving. I will disrupt, even if I must disrupt for 5 years, I will do that. If we must organize and mobilize people around what is being done that is not in the interest of our people. Lobby other forces for support for this, for decisions or for court cases, court actions, so we will disrupt, call for by-elections and whatever it is. And if I don't do that, my community, the constituency must recall me, So being elected does not mean that, and you're in the minority, that you're voiceless. It's the same things that the EFF have been doing very successfully when they came into parliament, disrupting, shining the light on certain things. Even ID, Patricia de Lille, with the corruption and all of those things. One has to be very focused at how do you hit the system, how do you hit the players within that system, and how do you push the people's cause forward, and not just, oh well, my vote is not going to count anything, I'm getting so tired of this and so forth. But the main purpose is to stay true to the course and to always be there as the mouthpiece for this constituency I am representing, and for the broader, for our working class, poor, and not for anybody else. So no, I don't have a for sale label. No, I am a disruptor of note. So Vita can tell you also, but I'm a disruptor of note, so I will be doing a lot of disruption while building communities as well as conscious mobilizing for change all the time. Thank you.
Corporate X, I think you're the last now for the academic. I think we always speak about building, rebuilding the future, and learning. This sounds like very big politics. And we see the local government election as an opportunity where communities are charged. And it's never like this. We know after the first, it's back to normal. And no one's going to ask you about the politics, about who's your councillor, what are your issues. It's back to communities in the streets fighting for themselves without the SAPC coming and saying, what are your problems? After this, the first and long gone. What is your approach to these elections specifically that contributes to the bigger goals of movement of care? How do you use them as a catalyst of unlearning, of building, of moving forward? what do they do? How do you agitate? Are you guys calling for people to support independent candidates? Are you saying no, communities can decide depending on what's happening in the different communities?
Sure, I think that's the point about the SABCs and the media going back after the election. That's exactly the problem. And that's exactly the trap that we should not fall into as people that are going to vote and people that are going to be voting. It's about keeping that momentum. There's momentum now towards elections. We are talking about political parties analyzing all these manifestos. Post the 1st of November, that's the momentum that we need to keep. As a movement, we have decided that we are going to support independent candidates. And we have been even in plans of engaging with Comrade Henriette. There's a number of independent candidates that we've engaged with. Today we were engaging with an independent candidate in Ward 57. That's where Chisimani is. And around even bringing together independent candidates, because there isn't part of the collective action, understanding that as an independent, you don't really have much behind you. And it's also to bring civil society organizations to support independence, because political parties are institutions. They have resources, they have money, they can hire people. But we as people that have worked in civil society, that's the resource that we have. If there are communities that are to challenge the unlawful occupation bylaw, we need to bring together the Funa Ogwaz, we need to bring together the Social Justice Coalition, we need to bring together Chisimani, because we've been talking about land. That's the resource that independent candidates can have and should have. And so as the movement, it will be to bring those organizations and say, here is a resource. If the budget is being discussed there, you need to understand what the transport budget is for. Bring all the organizations that are speaking about transport, bring independent candidates and discuss that and bring that resource around research and also legal assistance. That's what we as a movement hope to do. And maybe later on, we can build towards a much bigger ideal from the few independent candidates that we are engaging with now.
Hopefully you're not working with Musi. Because he's been the spokesperson of independent. But comrades, time is an issue. And I can see, I'm going to give last remarks to close. Because I can see people are leaving and stuff. It's getting very late. We live in unsafe communities. So I would have loved to open a second round, but I just want 2 minutes quickly. If we can do it in bullet points, that would be great. Final remarks, saying goodbye to comrades, just thanking people who are watching us online, thanking comrades who made the time to come here. If you have more question and engagement, can you grab these comrades outside and discuss further? The elections are 2 weeks now, 1 week away from them. So comrades, please, 1 minute if you can, bullet points, final remarks, saying goodbye. Sharp, comrade Rita.
Thank you for the opportunity for our organization, the Disabilities Action Community, to bring across our viewpoint. The narrative cannot and must never be led by NGOs, by your Sisimanis, by your Nifunai, Kwazi, whatever. It cannot. The narrative must be led by the working class, the people within our streets. Because these people get money. Their funders won't give them money to overthrow their system, Amanda.
Comrade Henriette, too quick.
Very quickly, it's difficult. It's very difficult mobilizing. It's very difficult. We know it's a big elephant. and we know that we won't eat it all in one sitting. So 2021 might not be the sitting, but we must continue. If there's a by-election happening in a year's time, we must get our communities ready to continue. We must not put our faith in political parties, but into organizations or organs of the poor that is led and controlled by the poor. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, the comrades have summarized. Those that are going to vote, comrades, if you've decided already, go vote and do what you have to do. But that's just one thing. That's a beginning. 5 years is long. You can't just vote and then go back and wait for miracles. There's no independent in my ward. I still don't know who to vote for because there's all these political parties. But I do want to vote. I'll see on the day. But that's just one piece of participation that I'm engaging on. Post that is doing the work with the communities that have been doing the work. Is participating in the different spaces, understanding the city's budget, participating in the city's budget, and continuing to disrupt in the different spaces that I'm working on. And that's what I hope everyone can be able to do here. So thank you.